The Legend of Sunset Shimmer, Ocarina of Time. By Ganondorf 8. November 17, 2014. Chapter 4, Beginnings of Revelations.
"If it ain't the forest girl from the other day," said Granny Smith as I walked into the house after having gotten what Spike referred to as a piece of heart. Getting it involved pushing and pulling the crates in the shed, and as I struggled, Spike merely chuckled away with that sarcastic wit of his. "Listen, I want to thank ya for what you did for me ter other day. It took me all night, but I finally managed to get Malin back in a good mood. Say young un, you look like you have some free time on your hands, so how about you play a little game of mine?" "Actually, I did come in here to see you about purchasing some milk," I said. "What a coincidence. That's the reward you can get if you manage to beat my game," said Granny Smith. "In that case, what do I have to do?" I asked. "Do you see these 3 cuckoos that I have here with me? I calls 'em super cuckoos, and I'm going to throw them into that there gaggle of regular cuckoos. Your challenge is to catch each one and bring them over to me. Get all 3 within 30 seconds, and you will earn yourself a bottle of Lon milk. I like you, so I'll let you play for free as many times as you want until you succeed," replied Granny Smith. "Thank you," I said. "Are y'all ready? Here go the super cuckoos," shouted Granny Smith as she tossed the 3 cuckoos in random directions where they quickly mingled about with the regular cuckoos. I had no way of telling exactly when I had caught them, but Granny Smith knew which ones were the super cuckoos. I soon found myself stumbling about in an effort to catch them, and as I constantly found myself flat on the floor, covered in feathers, trodden on by cuckoos, Spike's laughter in my ears, Granny Smith laughing, and even my own laughter, the urge to want to succeed kept me going. As I was having fun, which made me feel a lot better about myself, something else was happening far away. "You wanted to see me exalted Neighboru, ma'am, Neighboru ma'am. Enough with the formalities derpy. You know that you don't have to be on ceremony with me, and yes, I did want to see you regarding an important matter. First of all, did you make sure that no one followed you out here?" asked Rainbow Dash. "If I remember what you've told me in the past ma'am, no one ever pays attention to me except for you because of how special I am," replied Derpy. "So that means no one followed you? Good. Listen Derpy, I have a confession to make and you're the only one among the Gerudo that I trust the most. Ganondorf is mostly likely furious over the fact that I ordered us to return to the fortress, but I did so not for the reasons everyone thinks. They don't see that he is a sadistic man who will do anything in order to conquer the kingdom. He would even kill us, his own people, if it meant securing ultimate power. The others praise him because our laws say that we have to, but I can't follow him anymore," said Rainbow Dash. "What was the reason?" asked Derpy. "I ordered everyone to return here to slow down Ganondorf's plans, and maybe allow anyone in the castle to realize the danger that's in front of them. As far as the others are concerned, they believe that we returned in order to wait for further commands from him," replied Rainbow Dash. "If the great Ganondorf discovers that you've betrayed him ma'am, wouldn't that make your life forfeit?" asked Derpy. "My life was already forfeit the day I was born into the same tribe as Ganondorf," replied Rainbow Dash. "You could say that your actions were to his benefit, for without his warriors at full strength, his plans would have trouble succeeding. I know that I'm not the smartest one among the Gerudo and that I've made a lot of mistakes which the others have chastised me for, but believe me when I say that you can stop him,"
said Derpy.
"Hey! You never cease to amaze me, you know that?"
asked Rainbow Dash.
"This time I'm being serious,"
replied Derpy.
"I know, and I couldn't be more proud of you. The others all view you as a bumbling oaf who makes a mistake out of everything, but I see you as having so much potential. That's why I'm entrusting you with my final orders and expect you to carry them out,"
said Rainbow Dash.
"What do you mean?"
asked Derpy.
"My time here is up, as I know one of the others is bound to expose me as a traitor to Ganondorf. That's because he's had his most devoted followers observe my every movement within the last few months. I need to make my way over to the Spirit Temple and sabotage his plans there, which should give that forest girl a chance,"
replied Rainbow Dash.
"You mean that girl with the fairy that we encountered in town? Are you certain that she is the one, ma'am? I think it was just a coincidence that she seemed to recognize you even though you told her that you were someone else." "I'm not doubting you or anything, ma'am, but how certain can you be?"
asked Derpy.
"That girl had this weird aura surrounding her, and that is enough for me to believe that she can take down Ganondorf. Now Derpy, I want you to deliver this to her and then seek out safety with one of the other tribes. No doubt that this command will brand you a traitor, and I don't want you to suffer the same fate. This item is a ring which is filled with good magic, and I believe she will make good use of it,"
replied Rainbow Dash.
"What about Spitfire, ma'am?"
asked Derpy.
"Oh yes, Ganondorf's most faithful follower, and one who despises me for being in a position that she believes should be hers. I don't understand why she would hate me so much just because of a title, but I suppose I can see how she feels, as she has been my subordinate for years. Spitfire may try to coerce some information out of you, as she knows that you and I have a strong friendship, but you need to resist all of her tactics, and not let her know what we're up to,"
replied Rainbow Dash.
I understand, ma'am,"
said Derpy.
"Now let's rejoin the others and await Ganondorf's return,"
said Rainbow Dash.
"Hooey!
You finally managed to capture all 3 of my Super Cuckoo's young-un. Despite how long you took doing it, you never gave up and you scored yourself a bottle full of fresh lawn milk. I reckon you have the skills to be one of the world's best cowboys. You know, I think you deserve 2 helpings of milk, seeing as you worked so hard trying to win my little game."
"Here, the first one's on the house and you can guzzle it down right now, and after that I'll fill your bottle up anew to take with you on your journey,"
said Granny Smith as she handed over a bottle filled with milk. I consumed it as fast as possible, and within an instant I felt relieved. Even though what I drank was just milk, it must have contained some special properties that enable one's spirits to feel renewed.
"I'll admit that was a lot of fun,"
I said.
"It certainly had its share of fun moments, didn't it? Well, here's your refilled bottle of milk, so I guess this is where we say our goodbyes for now. If you ever need to have your bottle topped up, then by all means come back here,"
said Granny Smith. As I left Lon Lon Ranch in order to make my way to Kokiri Forest, I realized that it had been just over a day since I left. Yeah, 1 whole day doesn't really seem like all that much, does it? To Spike, it felt like he hadn't seen the forest for years. Upon entering the forest and subsequently the village, I became familiar with the beautiful scenery, and the sounds of nature going about their usual business, but then that was all shattered when I heard the sounds of someone I wish that I could forget.
"Link. So you decided to come back to the village after all?"
It was Diamond Tiara, the one who blamed me for the death of the great Deku tree. When I left here the other day to go to the castle, she said that she was going to tell the other Kokiri that I was to blame.
Things have been pretty dull around here without you around, so I've had to resort to making the other Kokiri's lives more miserable. And you think that makes you a good person?
I asked.
What do you mean?
Asked Diamond Tiara.
I've only known you for just over a day, and I've never seen anyone treat their own kind the way you have. Don't you have any kind of moral sense inside of you that makes you want to rethink how you've been acting? If you keep this up, you'll end up becoming isolated and alone, and all you'll have to show for it is a corrupted heart that can never comprehend what it means to have friendship.
I replied. Hearing myself say that about Diamond Tiara made me think about how I used to be back in the human world. I couldn't allow her to end up like that, so I had to at least try to get her to change her ways before it was too late.
Since when did you become so concerned for me?
Asked Diamond Tiara.
Because you remind me of how I used to be. I was mean to people and took advantage of them by manipulating them in order to strengthen my own influence. What I did to them was unforgivable, and not a day goes by that I regret my actions. I can help you get a second chance, Diamond Tiara, but you need to be willing to take it. Continue down the path you're on, and you will end up being alone and miserable for the rest of your life.
I replied.
Did leaving the forest change you, Link?
Asked Diamond Tiara.
And my name is Sunset Shimmer,
I shouted. I then realized that it was hopeless for Diamond Tiara to change her ways, and that all she could see was how great she believed she was. When she asked why I wanted to call myself Sunset Shimmer instead of Link, I just gritted my teeth and restrained myself. This all then reminded me that I had come here in order to see Fluttershy, and I was certain that Diamond Tiara must know where she was.
Look, I'm not here to argue with you or anything, so if you can answer me one simple question, I'll be on my way. Do you know where Fluttershy is, or as you call her, Saria? She's in the Lost Woods as usual,
replied Diamond Tiara.
Where is that?
I asked.
Don't tell me you don't know where that is? Humph. Well, if you must know, the entrance to the Lost Woods is right up there at the top of the village. The Lost Woods are called that because people have been getting lost there for years, yet no one knows what became of them. If you're lucky enough, you'll simply end up back here if you happen to get lost. How Saria manages to make it through there and back is anyone's guess, but she must have an incredible amount of luck. If you can't find her, don't come crying to me about it,
replied Diamond Tiara. She just had to get in that one last insult before she walked away, but I chose to ignore her and made my way into the Lost Woods. Upon stepping foot inside, I felt as though I were enclosed in some kind of cage due to the only means of moving on appeared to be 4 tunnels, one in each of the 4 compass points. Apart from the small patch of sunlight that shone through above, the entire place felt very eerie and quiet.
Can I ask you a question, Sunset Shimmer?
Asked Spike.
What is it?
I asked.
Why were you trying to be nice to Mito all of a sudden? She's always been mean to you, but you were willing to put yourself out there for her,
replied Spike.
Before we left the forest, I noticed a couple of the Kokiri talking to themselves about how much she had been mean to them, and I felt mortified that she had been allowed to get away with that. I believed that if I could just talk to her about her actions, then maybe she would be willing to change her ways,
I said.
Mito believes that she is the best among all of the Kokiri, and that she deserves all of the praise and attention.
Even though she says she is the boss, no one ever takes that seriously and simply go about their business. Maybe she suffers from some kind of inferiority complex that makes her want to lash out, or maybe she is jealous of the fact that you and Saria are such close friends.
For years, Mito has been trying to become close friends with Saria, and even learn her special song, but Saria knows how she treats the others, so she has always denied her. She also believes that she should have been summoned by the great Deku tree instead of you,"
said Spike.
"All jealously does is breed hatred. Believe me, I know that feeling all too well,"
I said.
"You know, since we've been traveling together for a while now, I've been thinking about that story of yours again. Seeing how you reacted to that pony, in Lon Lon Ranch, Princess Zelda in Hyrule Castle, and even Mito here in Kokiri Forest, I'm starting to believe that perhaps you were telling the truth. Granted, I'm still not 100% convinced of it, but I am starting to think you're more than what you appear to be,"
said Spike.
"It seems that you have made much progress since our last encounter, Sunset Shimmer." "Why? Flash Sentry. I wish that you wouldn't startle me like that,"
I said.
"This is the Lost Woods, which serves as a connection between the Kokiri Forest and other locations around Hyrule, which can be reached through warp ways. Beyond these the trees lies the sacred forest meadow, a place that few people have ever walked. This meadow houses an ancient temple that is said to contain the evil that exists in the forest." "Shh! Do you hear that?"
asked Flash Sentry.
"Hear what?"
asked Spike.
"I can hear a faint sound of someone playing an ocarina from deep within the woods,"
replied Flash Sentry.
"That must be Fluttershy," I said. "If you listen carefully to the sound of the music, then it can guide you safely through the Lost Woods, and eventually lead you to your friend. I have seen this young girl make her way through the woods to the sacred forest meadow many times as I fly through the skies on my loyal companion here, and I am amazed that she is able to make it through without succumbing to the dangers that exist here,"
said Flash Sentry.
"What kind of dangers?"
I asked.
"It is believed by many that whenever non-Kokiri enter the Lost Woods, they transform into skeletal creatures known as Stalfos, and are doomed to protect the temple from those who wish to enter it.
As for the Kokiri themselves, they transform into creatures known as Skull Kids, yet they retain their identities and not become mere monsters.
They are looked down upon by the Kokiri, so they choose to live here in their own form of eternal shame. There is no need for you to worry, Sunset Shimmer, for your magic shall prevent you from becoming a Stalfos or a Skull Kid. I will remain here and wait for you to return from the sacred forest meadow,"
replied Flash Sentry. That was a first for me, where he chose to simply stay put instead of fly off on that giant owl of his. The more I hear him talk, the more I suspect that there is much more to him than just simply being an aloof traveler.
"What is it about that guy you trust so much?"
asked Spike.
"He reminds me of someone that I was once in love with, but it wasn't exactly what you would call love.
Rather, I was using him in order to get popular, and the love angle was a facade so that no one would suspect anything. He eventually saw through my deception and subsequently broke up with me, and for a while he believed that I was going to get back at him.
This was before I began to understand the meaning of friendship, and now we view each other as friends more than anything else. The Flash Sentry I know is a really great guy and all, but he has a lot of detractors out there. The Flash Sentry of this world is a guy who has seen so much and gives advice to anyone who needs it. It's strange how two versions of the same person can be so different,"
I replied.
"You sound like you weren't always a nice girl,"
said Spike.
"There is so much about me that you don't even know about," I said. When the time is just right, perhaps you can tell me more about it,
suggested Spike.
I think you'll get your answers soon enough once we reach Fluttershy in this sacred forest meadow.
That conversation is one that I should have told her when I was about to leave the forest initially, but I was afraid to say something about it in case she either didn't believe me. With the thought of explaining myself to both Fluttershy and Spike entrenched in my head, the two of us continued to make our way through the lost woods by listening to the sounds of Fluttershy's ocarina as a guide. It felt strange that there was nothing of interest in each clearing aside from the occasional boulder, but I wasn't complaining as it meant not getting into trouble. After what felt like several days of exploring, Spike and I found ourselves entering a much larger clearing with what appeared to be maze-like walls scattered before us. An old gate was nearby, but the lock on it must have been removed a long time ago, leaving it to be disused. I didn't suspect Fluttershy of committing an act of vandalism, as that would go against her character, but I shouldn't worry about something as trivial as a broken gate.
I'm still amazed that Saria makes it all the way here so easily, said Spike. She must be pretty lucky to figure out how to get through the lost woods,
I said.
Luck doesn't really have anything to do with it, despite what that Flash Sentry guy might think.
Saria is different from the other Kokiri in that she has a very strong connection to the spirits. She doesn't understand why she is able to hear them, but they trust her enough to the point where they have allowed her to make her way to the sacred forest meadow. You could even say that Saria has a special magic like you do.
Oh. Before I forget, you should know that these pathways are littered with mad scrubs, Deku scrubs that are very agitated and will attack repeatedly until they exhaust themselves. Your fire magic should be able to take them out easily, but watch out for their barrage of Deku nuts,
said Spike. He wasn't kidding when he said to watch out for the Deku nut barrage, for as soon as I encountered my first mad scrub, I found myself being pelted by Deku nuts, which caused me to fall back around the corner in order to attack from a distance with my magic. Those nuts really do pack a punch, which makes me think that picking some up might come in handy in the future. My magic certainly is effective against these things, as each one quickly succumbed, with some requiring me to chase them down in order to defeat them. At the end of the maze was another path which consisted of a large flight of stairs at the far end, but before me stood even more mad scrubs which were quickly introduced to my magic.
I was thinking that what Flash Sentry said about the monsters being held back by the power of this temple may not be entirely accurate,
I said.
That's because the forest temple provides one half of the protection the Kokiri forest has experienced since the beginning. The great Deku tree served as the other half, but with his death, the temple may not be able to contain the evil of the forest for much longer. When that protection fails, mad scrubs will be the least of our problems, for the truly dark creatures will be able to emerge,
said Spike. Hearing him say that as I took care of the mad scrubs made me feel upset over the fact that I wasn't able to prevent the death of the great Deku tree. I know that his death wasn't my fault, but I was the last one who saw him when he was still alive, so in a way that makes me responsible for the fate of the entire forest. The final clearing was quite spacious, with a large platform in the center that had a strange symbol on top of it. At the end of the clearing loomed a large building in which the steps leading up to it must have crumbled away some years ago. As I looked around in awe over what I was witnessing, I saw Fluttershy sitting on a small tree stump playing an ocarina. I thought what she gave me was her prized possession or something. Why in Equestria does she have another one?
Link. Even though it hasn't been that long since I last saw you, it feels like forever has passed,
said Fluttershy.
What are you doing here?
I asked.
Whenever I need to converse with the spirits, or wish to be alone with my thoughts, I make my way here in order to play my ocarina. This is the sacred forest meadow. I feel that this place will be very important to the both of us someday. Yes, that is what I feel. You know, ever since you left the forest, I've been thinking about what you tried to tell me but couldn't. At first I was okay with not knowing, but then I started to feel that perhaps you didn't care about me to want to share with me what was wrong,"
replied Fluttershy.
"That's why I came here to see you,"
I said.
"Does that mean?"
asked Fluttershy.
"I came here in order to tell you everything which I should have done before I left the forest the other day.
I regret not telling you this sooner, as I was afraid that you wouldn't believe what I had to say, but that doesn't matter, as I feel that you deserve the right to know. Let me start by saying that my name isn't Link, even though it makes sense for one who comes from this world.
No, my real name is Sunset Shimmer, and this isn't the world where I come from, and it isn't your world either, or everyone else's for that matter. It all started back where I come from, known as the human world,"
I replied. I spent the next half hour explaining every last detail to Fluttershy without leaving out any details, so as to ensure that she understood everything. This same explanation was also for Spike's benefit, for he needed to be reminded of my story.
"You mean you're a pony, from another world?"
asked Fluttershy.
"That's right," I replied. "It's just so strange, Link."
"Sorry, I mean Sunset Shimmer, that name is going to take me some time to get used to. When you were explaining your story to me, I could imagine this world you came from. This Equestria, and it actually sounds like a wonderful place where ponies of all kinds can live there in peace. However, I can imagine the human world even more, as though I actually lived there at one time, but I've lived here in the forest since the day I was born.
Maybe in another life I lived in a city populated with many people, but here I am content with being among the wonders of nature and communing with the spirits,"
said Fluttershy. That was when a theory struck me which made me wonder why I never made the connection before, but I needed to test it by asking just one little question.
"What about that ability to talk to the spirits? How did you learn to do something like that?"
I asked.
"Well, I've always had this connection to the spirits due to me knowing a little bit of magic. It isn't really anything serious, mind you, compared to you, but I use it in order to understand what the spirits say to me. Where this magic came from is a question I can't answer, but it developed when I was really young. Oh, listen to me talking about myself when you are the one who was telling me all about you, the real you that is. Even if you are from another world, Sunset Shimmer, I will always cherish the friendship I've had with you since the day we first met years ago. That is something I'll never forget, no matter what,"
replied Fluttershy. That made me smile knowing she said that.
"Does this magic of yours remind you of anything?"
I asked.
"It does have me thinking about someone that I think I know, but honestly I just can't seem to picture it. Someone named Twilight, but I don't know anyone with a name like that,"
replied Fluttershy. My theory just got proven to be correct thanks to what Fluttershy said just now. Her equestrian magic has allowed her to remember some facets of the human world, just like it had done for Twilight when I brought it up back at the castle. Despite the fact the human world has been transformed into Hyrule, the magic of Equestria managed to survive the transition, but not 100%, mind you, as both Twilight and Fluttershy can only vaguely remember how things are meant to be. Shoot! I could have confronted Applejack and Rainbow Dash over the same thing, but I wasn't able to, which means I need to speak to both of them again in order to get them to start remembering things from before. Then another question hit me. Where were Pinkie Pie and Rarity? I have yet to see either one of them since I first found myself in this world, so where exactly could they be?
Fluttershy? Now that's a name I feel has a lot of meaning, but I do prefer to be called Saria. If you were to play the ocarina right here, then you can listen to the forest spirits. Would you like to play the ocarina with me?
Asked Fluttershy. Even though I had gotten better playing it, I nodded my approval to her regardless of the fact.
Okay, then please play the following notes after I've done so.
Fluttershy then played 3 notes and repeated the process before turning it over to me. Unlike the previous 2 songs I had learned, this one felt like it was made for me to play, so I played it as though I had done so for years.
Great, great. I just knew that you would be able to play my song. This song is called Saria's Song, named after me, and when you play it, you can talk to me at any time you want, even if we are far away from each other. I suppose this is where we part ways again,
I said.
Yes, only now it won't be one of those forever moments, for you can always come back here and see me if you want to. I'll most likely stay here for a while longer as I want to continue talking with the spirits, but then I'll make my way back to the village as no doubt they are starting to wonder where I am,"
said Fluttershy. While it would have been nice if she could have come with me, I chose to respect her decision and began to make my way back to the Lost Woods. If there was a consolation in all of this, it would be the fact that we can now communicate with each other through the use of her song. Another consolation was that there were no monsters blocking my way back, so I didn't have to be cautious or anything. Except for when it came down to dealing with one person.
"Did you learn a song from Saria?" "Why?"
I shouted due to Flash Sentry once again scaring the living daylights out of me, and why was he waiting for me at the edge of the Lost Woods? Didn't he say he was going to wait for me to return near the center of the woods? Why can't he just make up his mind?
There is certainly a mysterious power to be had within that song, and perhaps there are other songs out there that you can learn? I advise that you practice the songs you have learned so that they become second nature to you. As I look at you, I can tell that you have gotten a little stronger since starting your journey, but there is still much more you need to achieve. Many more trials await you, and you will need to conquer them all,"
said Flash Sentry.
"I do have one question for you,"
I began.
"What is it?"
asked Flash Sentry.
"Do you know anything about a tribe called Gorons?"
I asked with a confused look on my face. It was a name that Applejack only told me once, and it was a miracle that I even remembered it to begin with.
"The Gorons are a mountainous people who have lived on Death Mountain for many generations. Their leader formed an alliance with the King of Hyrule, which makes them both view one another as equals, and she takes this honor very seriously to the point where she would feel insulted if she were to be treated as anything less. It is known by many throughout Hyrule that the Gorons are skilled at making weapons and bombs due to having dexterous fingers,"
said Flash Sentry.
"What is the name of their leader?"
I asked.
"That is a question I cannot answer, but I'm sure that you may find it in Kakariko Village, as the Gorons are known to visit there in order to trade for various goods. It's time for me to take my leave of you, Sunset Shimmer, but we shall meet again as always,"
replied Flash Sentry. Once again he urged his giant owl to take to the skies and was gone almost instantly, but what he said about the leader of the Gorons made me worry about how I was going to deal with her. It sounded to me that she had a short temper. While making my way back to the Kokiri Forest, I took a few side paths where I earned a piece of heart by playing Fluttershy's song for a rather strange-looking forest child. Then I earned a second piece of heart by playing a series of notes several times for 2 more children who looked exactly like the first one. Finally, I received a larger bullet bag which held 40 seeds just by shooting a stationary target in its center 3 times, which I felt was too easy. If these are the kinds of goodies that I could earn on my journey in this world, I should try to get as many as I can. Upon returning to the village, I wanted to see if anyone was going to greet me in any way. No one acknowledged me, so I shrugged my shoulders and left the village in order to finally go to Kakariko village, where the next leg of my journey was to take place.
Sigh. What's wrong, Sunset Shimmer?
Asked Spike.
I know we're heading to Kakariko village, but what exactly are we supposed to do there in order to get to Death Mountain?
I asked.
Princess Zelda and her attendant Impa were pretty vague when it came to explaining that, but maybe that letter the princess gave you may be of some help? I don't know for sure just who she has written it to, but someone is bound to want to see what it says. You know, you could ask Saria for help as you do have her song now, and she did say that you two can communicate with each other.
Replied Spike.
But so soon? We only just left her, and I don't want to feel like a burden.
I said.
If I know Saria and I do, she wouldn't mind if you contacted her straight away, said Spike.
After thinking it over for a few minutes, I concluded that Spike made a valid argument, so I played Fluttershy's song in order to see if she could give me some advice.
Sunset Shimmer? This is Saria. Can you hear me? Great, we're able to talk to each other through the use of my song, just as I knew we could. I'm a little surprised that you wanted to contact me right away since you left only a short while ago, but that's okay because I'm here to help you regardless. The spirits talked to me just after you left the sacred forest meadow, and they told me that you were going to Kakariko village in order to climb up Death Mountain,
said Fluttershy.
That's right, I said. The spirits also told me that there is someone who is standing guard at the entrance to Death Mountain, and has been given strict orders by the king to not let anyone climb up the mountain who isn't a Goron.
Maybe you can convince this guard to let you through if you could give him something that proves that you've been given permission to make the climb.
Something else is happening at the village according to the spirits, and it involves the leader of the Gorons who has gone there for something. I don't know exactly what this means, but maybe someone in the village has an idea as to what is happening. If you ever need to speak to me again, just play my song and I will help you out as best as I can, but you can always rely on your partner for help,
said Fluttershy.
Okay, so that explains how we need to get to Death Mountain, but what did she mean about the Goron leader?
I asked.
I'm not sure, Sunset Shimmer, as she has never had a reason to go to Kakariko village unless she was just passing through in order to go to Hyrule Castle. Usually, she would send a Goron or two to the village in order to trade with the villagers, but to go there herself? Something must be really wrong if she had to get involved,
replied Spike. His words began to worry me because of what Flash Sentry said regarding the Goron leader, and what I assumed she was going to be like. If she truly was in a bad mood, then things were going to get intense. The entrance to Kakariko village was located up a small flight of stairs located a few hundred meters away from the wall that surrounds Hyrule Castle town, but then this posed another question. Why is this village so close to the main city of Hyrule? Why not just make the two locations the same instead of making them two different locations? Kakariko village appeared to be a quiet little hamlet when Spike and I entered, with the sounds of cuckoos clucking away in the distance, the sounds of construction being heard nearby, and the wind blowing about in a carefree way. This village felt like I was in Equestria all over again due to how serene it was, but that quickly changed when a loud thud came out of nowhere, which was followed by an earthquake.
What was that?
I asked.
Beats me, but it sure was powerful for a tremor. Kakariko village has always been peaceful, and the only loud noises one hears aside from the cuckoos is the sound of construction from the local workers. The village is always being worked on in order to make it larger so as to allow more people to live here, but I don't think any of the workers would want to rely on such extreme methods in order to make progress,"
replied Spike. I then noticed someone nearby standing in front of a tree, and it was Sweetie Belle, Rarity's little sister, but she looked like someone had made her angry, for she was mumbling to herself about something.
"Sweetie Belle? It's me, Sunset Shimmer,"
I said.
"Hey? Did you just call me Sweetie Belle? What in the world kind of name is that? If I was called a name like that, I'd be the laughing stock of the entire village. My name is Muto, and I am the boss of the carpenters who were hired by the Great Impa in order to transform this village into a fine city. But, my workers are just going about at their own pace without any clear direction. They're all lazy, I tell you. However, they're the only ones who are qualified, so I'm pretty much stuck with them. You're dressed real weird, you know, but don't mind me as I've not been in the best of moods as of late,"
said Sweetie Belle.
"Why is that?"
I asked.
"Things have been peaceful here in Kakariko for a long time, but that was all shattered 3 days ago when a group of Gorons came down here from Death Mountain demanding that they be allowed to purchase some of the rocks we have.
Those rocks are a part of our building supplies which we use to build homes, and they want to deny people the chance to live here?"
"We did what anyone else would do, and that was flat out refuse their demand. So those Gorons came back the next day demanding the same thing, but again we refused for the same reason, in that those rocks were for houses, but then they came back again the day after that, and again demanded to purchase our rocks. When we refused them this time, they said their chief was going to hear how the servants of her sworn brother had denied them help when they needed it the most,"
replied Sweetie Belle.
"So what happened today?"
I asked.
"They came back yet again, but this time their chief came along due to being frustrated with what she called disrespect towards the alliance between us and them. I know that His Majesty views his alliances with the other tribes as being important to the future of Hyrule, but what those Gorons are doing is completely unacceptable,"
Sweetie Belle said before the sound that caused the earthquake earlier happened again. It felt much stronger than before, which caused me to fall down on my rear, but it seemed to have had no effect on Sweetie Belle or anyone else in the village.
"That chief of theirs has been smashing her hammer down in anger and frustration ever since she got here, and it's really starting to get on everyone's nerves.
All she's doing is throwing a tantrum just because she can't have her own way, and is accusing the king of disrespecting their status as being equal."
"I'm sorry if I'm cutting this conversation short, but I'm going to go over there right now, and give that stubborn Goron a piece of my mind, not just for my sake, but for that of everyone in the village."
Sweetie Belle then stormed off, leaving me to wonder just what was really going on around here. It sounded like there was some kind of standoff between the village and the Gorons over a supply of rocks. Rocks? Seriously? All of this commotion over some rocks?
"Why are they arguing over rocks?"
I asked.
"Gorons consume rocks like you would consume food, Sunset Shimmer, and while that may seem strange to you, it makes perfect sense to them as they are known as the Mountain People."
Something, however, doesn't seem right, and that has to do with the whole rock situation. The Gorons should have plenty of rocks at their disposal as they mine them constantly, so they would have no need to seek out rocks from somewhere else. Also, They've been on friendly terms with the people of Kakariko village for years, so why would they suddenly decide to act so irrational?
Whatever is going on around here, it's going to make our journey to Death Mountain much more difficult as we don't want to deal with angry Gorons. Believe me, they can be really scary when they're mad,"
replied Spike.
"Just when I thought things were going to be a little easier for us, this has to end up happening,"
I sighed.
"No one said a journey were ever easy, and if they were then there would be no point to them as you'd gain no experience if everything was just handed to you. Do you recall what Flash Sentry, that is what you called him, right, said about you having to overcome many trials? Think of this situation between the Gorons and the villagers as being one of those trials you need to face,"
said Spike.
"No pressure on me, right? I could do without any of that,"
I moaned.
"Then you'll just have to deal with it and not worry about the pressure, so let's go and see what we can do to help,"
said Spike. Sometimes I get the feeling that Spike enjoys being right about these things, and making me eat my own words afterward, but in this case he was right in that we had to do something in order to prevent things from getting even worse. As we walked further into Kakariko village, another earthquake occurred, and it was even more powerful than the previous one. Again, I fell down on my rear, but I knew that I was getting closer, and that was when I started to think about this Goron chief who's causing the earthquakes. She must be very powerful to be able to cause earthquakes by using just a hammer. That was when I heard Sweetie Belle's voice, although it was softer due to her still being a distance away from me.
"Why do you have to be so stubborn?"
she asked.
"You would dare talk to me who is a brother to the king? That makes me so mad."
I couldn't tell what the Goron chief sounded like, but then another earthquake happened, but this time I was prepared for it as I didn't want to fall down for a third time. The voices were coming from the north end of the village where a large gate was. This must be the entrance to Death Mountain. I ran up a few steps and found myself standing before a group of girls who were wearing some armor that looked really old due to all of the dents, but not the kind of armor you'd see on, say, a knight. This armor made them appear to be mercenaries or something from those fantasy books they have in the Canterlot High Library. The one girl who had the roughest armor suddenly turned around to face me, but I wasn't able to see who it was, for the only thing I could see was a giant spiked hammer coming right at me. To be continued. Chapter 5, Darkness of the Graveyard.